All right, now we'll start. So, as I was saying, a lot of people in this room, clearly Jurassic Park is a pretty important movie for a lot of us. So, my first question to the panelists that were working on some of the earlier films is, when you were first working on Jurassic Park, was it something that you knew when you were working on it that you were on something really, really special at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Just to say, I was a huge dinosaur fan as a kid. I knew all of them, and I read the book. And when Jim Teagarden, I think, called me and said, do you think you might want to work on Jurassic Park? I'm like, yeah. So, I mean, it was a dream come true. And then the first day, and we talked about this earlier this morning, when we got the first piece of footage from ILM showing what the dinosaur was going to look like. It was just in a black field with this runway and it was a T-Rex and a raptor. Yeah. And they were like running and they had the weight to them. It was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be good. Yeah.
Right. Well, was there, I guess also tied into that, was in your work on the Jurassic series, is there any specific scenes or moments that you see in the movies that you're like, that's one of my favorite things? I know, John, you had worked on like the vehicles, for instance, and things like that. Is that?
Yeah, so the T-Rex attack, when it attacks the Ford Explorers, that was a favorite scene of mine because I got to do some storyboarding on that scene. I came up with the idea of them getting the flare out of the back of the Explorer and using that as a distraction for the T-Rex, and then also being able to design the vehicles. Seeing him get destroyed was fun.
Yeah, and that design carried through, throughout the entire series, I think. That whole kind of John's graphic approach to it really was part of the look of Jurassic Park that I think we all sort of associate with. That it's like this theme park, this really extreme theme park.
Anybody else have any favorite scenes? Lauren?
Favorite scenes? Well, it's so hard to choose. It's like all
Yeah.
of them, yeah. I always like the poor Eddie gets torn with the two T-Rexes. I was standing there when they were doing that on stage, so it's a fond memory, but I have a little umbrella. It was raining hard. It was good.
Yeah, another thing that, fans of this film and a lot of films are always interested in the things that are don't necessarily go right, or things that you have to fix a problem on the last day or on the day of filming and make a patch or repair something. So are there any crazy stories like that you might have had of just a rough day, but in the end it's something that maybe became like very iconic or was something that people remember?
Hopefully they remember it all, but
Everything went perfectly.
Well, I had one story. I hate to hog. I don't know if anybody got a story, but the very opening to Jurassic Park is supposed to be, you see the trees rustling and you don't know what the dinosaur is yet. It was supposed to be like a brontosaurus coming in. That's what Stephen wanted to do, but we had the raptor pen that comes in, and I was in charge of the cage, and it was made in LA. I was in Kauai. I said, whatever you guys do building it, just make it as light as possible. It weighed a ton. And when it came to the site, which was hard to get to, we had to fix some of the paint, touch it up, but I couldn't see the bottom, and it was too heavy for us to raise until the giant forklift came that was going to be used. So the day of, I had the standby painter ready, and and finally lifted it up, and I'm like, okay, we just got to get under there and paint it. It is not painted. It is raw plywood. So next time you watch that, think I'm in. I just cringe every time. I'm like, it's not bad.
Opening shot.
Yeah, that's my name on that. Good job.
yeah,
Good job.
yeah. But you're probably the only one who sees that, though.
Yeah, it's
You
one of
and
those
maybe-
sounds only dogs
Well,
can
and
hear.
then
Yeah.
now all these
everyone.
people will see it.
Everyone,
But,
yeah.
But other than that, unless they go tell their friends, see that.
Yeah,
Get it
I
in
know.
super 4K HD,
Yeah.
You can see every grain of the plywood.
Yeah.
I worked on it for just a few months with Rick, kind of starting to develop images and stuff, and then I got sucked off by Stephen to go work on, Hook. And so I stopped working on Jurassic, which really kind of pissed me off because I really wanted to stay. I was like, it's a great show. But one of the things that we were doing was, because we were talking with I believe that at that point, Universal Studios was owned by a Japanese corporation, and they were looking ahead to enlarging the Universal Studios tour, and they wanted to create a Jurassic Park ride. And so there was a lot of research going into the idea of somehow amortizing the expense of these, large puppets, which is what the dinosaurs were at that point. Well, at least some of them, not all. And you can talk about this more, the digital ones, but being able to reuse them for the ride. Yeah, there's a T-Rex. There's a T-Rex, and it's a so yeah. And he's yeah. Geez, everybody got that. They're losing.
Well, they can open doors, right?
Yeah. Anyway, it was talking with Stan Winston Studios and stuff about the different needs of a large animatronic puppet that was going to be partially submerged in water and was going to work, I don't know how many times a day, and be out in the weather and out in the elements, as opposed to an auto animatronic puppet that had to really act and move, not like a forklift, but had to really have, the intricacy and the subtlety. And so that was one of the big things that, I think that the studio thought, oh, this is going to be, here's how we'll do it. We'll save a lot of money. And then as we were developing and getting into it all, it was like, well, no, you can't do it this way. You can't build a puppet like let's say a T-Rex puppet that you can use for both making the movie, unless you want it to really be a for crap movie, and also for a ride, which nobody's going to come to if you make a crap movie, So anyway, that was just talking about that whole thing about moving the studio's perspective, and I think Steven's perspective, which of course was the highest level. He really wanted this to be really you guys can speak to that for sure,
Yeah, well, that's another interesting thing that we kind of talked about this morning, was the idea of, in a lot of things, you build the set and we bring the dinosaur to the set. Whereas, Lauren, you were talking about, in this case, you have a much larger thing. So,
Right, on Lost World, on one stage, we had two tracks that kind of started to meet at a point, and so we had one T-Rex each. So like that scene we were talking about with Eddie getting torn apart by the two. Usually we bring the actors to the set, but in this case, we brought the sets to the actors. So those T-Rexes weighed a ton, and we weren't going to move them anywhere. So we put the trailer between them so they could walk along and torture the people inside, or have the car there for that scene. Or we set up the boy's bedroom next to it so he could look out his window and see the T-Rex going by, all that. So that instance, yeah, the sets came to the actors.
Yeah.
Actors being dinosaurs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, yeah, there in all of these, there was a tremendous amount of preparation. And I think some other kinds of directors wouldn't have been right for this, because it's required a tremendous amount of preparation, a tremendous amount of pre-thought, and a tremendous amount of shot preparation too. So guys like Tim doing storyboards and stuff, it was really important that everybody understood that. Ed Verreaux, shut up.
Yeah, it's only when you talk.
Great. Oh. Uh-oh.
John Bell has very clearly pointed out that the only time this guy talks is when I'm talking. So I think you others.
Yield the floor.
Yeah, I yield the floor to whoever wants to.
Well, I mean, you do storyboarding in pre-production, and basically, in a nice, safe, office area, so we're not out being rained on in the middle of Hawaii. That's a really bad production if they're doing storyboards and you got to worry about the weather. But yeah, that means that there's a lot of things that you plan for that are even in the script that never make it to film. With Jurassic World, there were certain sets that are actually built like the petting zoo. And they had a whole sequence with a baby dinosaur stampede. Never happened, you know. The one thing that I did get going with, because I was basically working with the moment the flying dinosaurs, the pteranodons, pterodactyls, and other species. There's like 2 species. I'm not exactly sure which one, Quetzalcoatl maybe, I don't know. They came in and one of them tried to pick up a baby, I think it was Triceratops. And then all the babies started coming in to defend it, you know, and I think that was like hardly a couple of minutes of the whole thing, and that was that set, you know. Baby dinosaurs, why not? Really?
Baby dinosaurs.
I'm the baby. No, you don't remember that one.
Little different dinosaurs. Well, as some of you also worked on Jurassic World, I guess for those that worked on that series, like Ed, you kind of touched on it, the idea of maintaining that Jurassic Park visual language and maintaining that feeling that Rick and John had done in the initial films.
Yeah. We even did because it was so much more. It was to be a much more developed, complete world, a complete theme park, a complete, you know, like a resort destination. So we even went and spent a day just walking around Universal Studios and photographing everything, photographing signage, photographing, you know, signage to the men's room, and, you know, I mean, just all that stuff to sort of say, here's the way a complete theme park feels. Now, we're not going to copy this, but we want it to have this kind of a feeling to it. And so then graphically, we really worked and created a whole graphic portfolio that had that, you know, this is the look of Jurassic World theme park, but it still, you know, harken back to, you know, the previous 3 movies, so that you were still within that world of Jurassic, you know, you were within the Jurassic World. Because I think that's really important, especially, you know, I mean, it would, well, you know, it's just like any other kind of a franchise film like this, you know, that you're creating a universe. And so it has certain things that I think you sort of somehow need to remain consistent. And one of those things is it's the look of it. It's the sense of like who's designing, you know, who were the designers, you know, who were the people, you know, out there in this mythical world who made this. And, you know, they don't, you know, it's like they don't ignore what's gone before. They may change it, you know. I mean, we
Evolve it.
You know, it evolves and, you know, all that. But it still you know, pays reference, you know. I mean, you know, and just one thing I really like this, when people, you know, say, oh, you copied or something like that. Well, no, you know, we were influenced by stuff. There isn't any of us in this room, any of you, who doesn't have like a cultural, you know, a set of design ideas that you've learned from growing up in the 20th century, in the 21st century in the Western world. You know, and the only way you could be like a completely original, like not copy any of this, is you'd have to be like a feral child living in the art, you know, like, you know, living somewhere up in the hills of New Guinea, and you've never come in contact with anybody, you know, and you would have no cultural reference, no design reference to draw from. But we all do, because, you know, and then those of us that, you know, are designers, and it's our business, you know, it's our job to study this. And so we're, I think, hyper aware of that, you know.
Yeah. That graphic language that Ed's talking about I was kind of given a lot of leeway by Rick Carter, who was a production designer on the first film. And I had met Rick and Ed on Back to the Future 2. And so Rick liked my sensibility for graphics and color and whatnot. And so I remember when he first approached me about getting involved in Jurassic, he had me come into the art department, and he says, you know, a lot of work's already been done in a lot of different areas. I want you to read the script. I want you to take a look at what's been done, but then give me your take on it, and what would you do? And, you know, he kind of opened up a lot of doors for me. So I was always kind of bouncing around and designing all kinds of stuff, from signage and props to the vehicles, obviously. And so it was a lot of fun, a lot of storyboarding. But it was one of the best film experiences I've ever had. I mean, that is right up there with Back to the Future 2.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was going to say, as John was talking and everybody else has mentioned, the person who should be here and isn't here is Rick Carter.
Yeah.
Who was a major force. Yeah, seriously.
I wouldn't be here.
I mean, I have to say this, for me and for my career, if Rick Carter hadn't been there, I would be in a totally different position now. Yeah, totally different place. So, yeah, thank you, Rick.
Well, John was actually doing, he boarded, this has surprised me this morning, is that he boarded like a major, the kitchen sequence where the kids are trapped in the kitchen and hiding from the raptors. No dialogue, nothing. It was all visual. And because of, it had to work flawlessly because you had to understand the positioning of where the raptors were in particular where the kids were, because you were worried for the kids because you knew where the raptors were, and the payoff of what was like the reflection of the kids, and you had to understand that visually, and it all worked brilliantly. Nobody had to explain anything, you know. That was like a masterwork in storyboarding.
That was a fun sequence too, because I was sitting across from Steven, and then Rick Carter was sitting beside me, and we had a blueprint of that room that I think John Burgard did. You remember John Burgard? Yeah. John Burgard did that, and so Steven he'd look at the plan, Rick would kind of walk him through the plan, and then he'd say, okay, I need some paper and a pen. And he'd get a little fidgety, and he'd grab some paper, and he'd have a pen, and he would just start drawing, and he'd go, okay, first we need a wide shot to establish, and then he'd do a quick drawing. And I'm opposite from him, so I'm trying to keep up with his speed, and I have to make sense of what he's doing, but in the reverse, because I'm sitting across the table from him. So trying to make sense of that and keep going, and that sequence, boarding that sequence initially was like 2 hours. Then you go, okay, I'm done. See you next week.
Yeah.
We walk away.
There you are.
But it was really fun. It was a real challenge, but a really fun one nonetheless.
Lauren, maybe you can talk to this, or maybe John. It was my understanding too that when that sequence especially, that they built a half-scale model of the set, and then this is just with just, you know, cardboard boxes and stuff, and then they build a full-size one or something like that, and they literally went through, you know, it would have been like with a big video camera about the size of a fire plug in those days. You know,
me and Caroline Quinn.
Yeah.
We crawled through the set. We pretended to be the kids, and we crawled through the whole set.
Yeah. And you like prevised it.
Yeah, it was nutty.
Were you Lex or Tim, John?
I think I was both at one point.
Oh, very nice. All right. Well, do we have any questions in the audience?
So far?
All right. Is there going to be another one?
You're asking the wrong people.
Yeah. You'll have to go to the producers panel, which will be at the...
Well, if you think about it, the first three were all the same, you know, in line, and then they had a break, and then they came up with a different approach to it. So who knows if they're going to take this time to come up with another approach that's fresh with a new set of characters, you know.
Another level, whatever it was fantastic, and I don't know how you guys would have to yourself on that.
So just to repeat the question so that everyone can hear, just in case, the question was basically about who designs the creatures, the dinosaurs from the beginning. So I guess.
Well, some of that, from my experience, it came from different people that were associated with Stan Winston, and then others. There was a couple of literally, paleontological illustrators, John Gurche, I think, and Mark Hallett, who were original, actually working as dinosaur-specific illustrators at the beginning of the first Jurassic Park. And they would do these, literally photorealistic illustrations of what the different animals looked like and all that. And then there was a lot of discussion about, and then this happened more as we got into 2 and 3. I didn't work on 2, but I did work on 3 with Joe Johnston, and there was a lot of discussion about, like for instance, the raptors, their color schemes. And we did a lot of work on that about working with different color schemes and all of that. And then I know that this then, and it went on every iteration of Jurassic Park.
Yeah, did you get enough feathered dinosaurs this time around?
Yeah,
Okay.
did you see them? Yeah, they're in there.
Yeah.
Did you have a question as well?
I actually have two. So the first one is, I have to say Jurassic Park just kicks ass. It's the best movie out there. But for me, a lot of people are saying, why not recreate and bring the dinosaurs back? I know they're trying to do it with the mammoth. And a lot of people are saying, well, it's kind of playing God, but you guys...
So the question is, should we bring dinosaurs back?
Why don't we play God?
We've already reanimated flesh, so no. You understand? There's also they are animals that existed in the ecosystem the same way that our animals do right now. The fact that we have bacteria and stuff in our own bodies that help us digest food, you would have to bring back, for some of these animals, you'd have to bring back the plants they ate and maybe even the microorganisms that help them digest. So stuff like mammoths, yeah, they're close enough to, animals that live right now that they could probably, and in fact, what they're actually proposing is cloning them, or actually crossbreeding them with elephants. But dinosaurs, it's.
Yeah, I think maybe to quote the film, they're too busy thinking whether or not they could to stop whether or not they should. So maybe we shouldn't bring dinosaurs back.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, that was a good answer. You've always thought about this a whole lot more than I have.
Oh, I read all that stuff, baby. You're talking about John Gurich and Hallett. I know who exactly you were talking about.
Yeah, what was it you said? What was his character's name? Malcolm?
Ian Malcolm?
Yeah.
Yeah. He would have been. You could have had a talk with him.
Well, I don't necessarily want that to happen. For instance, we got global warming. Why would you want to have hairier elephants?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good question.
For either storyboarding or production design, what are your favorite mediums to get inspired with regard to creating that? In terms of technology, or are you out photographing things? What is it that you're using to roll through?
Yep, so the question is basically, just so everyone can hear again, is what kind of sources are you using for your inspiration, your world building when storyboarding, illustrating, and production designing?
For storyboarding, you're really just working off the words of the script. I mean, the storyboard artists are the first ones to visualize the script, and then the directors are reacting to those initial drawings. Sometimes they keep the first ones, and sometimes you have to revise and revise and revise.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work that goes through it. And you're lucky if you've done a drawing, a storyboard, and you're sitting in the theater a year later and you see that shot come up on the screen. It's pretty rare. Pretty rare.
Yeah, I think also probably like John said, it's reading the script at the beginning. So the script is kind of the Bible of the thing, and for me it's whatever starts to bubble up, and then I really just kind of make notes. I'll just do little notes or something, on Post-its or whatever, and then I might start looking stuff up. I certainly look, back in the old days you get books and stuff. You go to the film libraries or whatever and you'd look up books. Also, like on the first Jurassic, I mean, among others, we did a lot of research at the beginning. So besides talking to experts like Hallett and Gertje and others, I'm sure, like I got to, I went down to, I think it's the Page Museum in, is it the Page Museum? That's down at the La Brea Tar Pits, and talked to the director down there and got a tour and learned how they do a dig and how they extract and how they, do all of that. And then I also went down to San Diego Wild Animal Park for a day and got a behind the scenes tour of how they, keep and control big animals, like the elephants and the giraffes and stuff. So I got a lot of pictures of that, because we were going, how do they control dinosaurs? What's that going to be? So a lot of that helped inform us and everybody. So it's a cross-pollination, because like John said, there's illustrators doing stuff, and there are art directors looking at stuff, and the production designer and the head art director is giving people different
Tasks.
Yeah, tasks. Thank you. That's getting old. So that they can follow through and begin to build like a visual construct of what this world is. They got a new term now, or they've been using it recently. It's called world building. We used to just call it set design, but it's world building. And we create these worlds in which these stories take place.
Yeah.
I got to do poop. Dinosaur poop.
I got to do a raptor cage.
You never know what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very important, great big pile of shit. So.
Well, I did the storyboard with Jurassic World. I have to step in with the storyboarding thing. Sometimes you are just playing around with the director, and whatever thoughts are coming out of his head or whatever he's initially done, you put down. But normally, when you're setting something up to be shot with a camera, with a crew, you're basically working from a set of designs of even if the set isn't built yet, you have to know what this thing looks like. So when there's the whole park, I did a whole sequence of pteranodons and flying dinosaurs coming through, and Jimmy Buffett was a victim, I think, one of them. And I had to know where they were, what position everything was, and what the design was, and that was referenced in my storyboards, so that it translated into the day that they actually were on set. I mean, for one thing, that whole set with the street and all the things going on, they only built one side of it. The other side was all CGI. So if you want to have physical things interacting with other physical things, you have to pick the right side.
Yeah, of Main Street?
Of Main Street,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I got to be the assistant art director working with, so my bosses are the art directors and production designer, and Krista Monroe was the art director on Main Street, and that was so much fun to work on, because we got to do, it was like we had the visitor center, the exterior at the end, and then the two sides of the street, and then, like you said, at the back side was the Mosasaurus area, but it was all just on concrete. And that was just like a really fun experience, being on the Main Street side of it, and getting to, because there was so much changeover as well between all those scenes, day scenes, night scenes, fight scenes, the Velociraptors and the T-Rex and the Indominus Rex. And, yeah.
Yeah, the mosasaur ate 3 different people before they got to the one that, it was like, first it was a news crew guy, then it was a ranger, and then it turned out to be the assistant who went on to work on Supergirl, and then.
All right. Oh, you got a question down here?
The attention to detail, even on the smallest things, is outstanding. And I wanted to ask, you're the guys to ask. So Tyrannosaurus Sue from the first movie, right? Obviously she's not in the second movie because that's a different island, but the scrapes from the Velociraptor attack, is this the same T-Rex that shows up throughout the whole series?
So the question is it the same T-Rex in all of the films?
It's like a Xerox. It's
'Cause
coming
it has
from the same.
scrapes still on the.
They made one, then they made another, and it's all the same DNA.
Well, it was the same puppet. Yeah, it was the same puppet. I mean, it's a big puppet, like Lauren said. I mean, it's like a train car, and it's got its own set of wheels and all that. And like she showed, that you build the set around the tracks, that are going to hold the puppet, whatever it's going to be, and you prepare everything in that way. So like in Jurassic Park 3, when the plane comes down, and then there's a scene where the T-Rex is, I think it was the T-Rex or the Spinosaurus. I'm not sure which. It was one of the. It was the new one or the old T-Rex, and it's playing with the plane. So we did that on stage 12 when we had the tracks laid out a certain way, so that at opposite ends of the stage. This is a bigger stage at Universal. There are big loading doors, so that we could load one of the puppets in one end, load another puppet in the other end, so they could come together and have a fight, blah, 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 blah. We could pull one back, we could bring in the tree and put the plane in the tree so that could be threatening them in the tree. And all this had to be planned in advance, and so that's where the storyboards come from, so that we can look at this. And, lots of times, it takes a lot of people going through this, and the first assistant director is the person who actually puts together the schedule of, you're going to shoot this in this order. But lots of times we will have meetings with them and say, no, it would be better if you did it this way, because schedule-wise, we can't do these two things on the same day. This has to, you have to give us 2 days to move this, whatever, So there's a tremendous amount of planning and scheduling that goes on. And the storyboarding and all of that is really, it's vital.
And I think we have time probably for like one or two more questions. 2 more questions. All right, we'll go deep in the back.
Can you explain what the pre-pro process is like as far as collaborating with the director to figure out the design of the film, and then what that was like specifically with each of the respective Jurassic films that you worked on?
Yep, so what was the pre-pro production experience like, working with the director and figuring out the design aesthetic, and then did I get that all?
Yeah, and then what was it like for each of them?
And then what was it like for you on each of your films?
Well, I guess for me, it was Rick saying, give me your take on what Jurassic Park is to you. We've done a lot of work, like I was saying earlier, and give me your take on things. And so I just start designing different elements that appealed to me and what I thought I could bring some interest to. Some of the storyboards that I was doing up front, I got kind of sidetracked because of I was understanding the script a little more adult, and so a lot of my storyboards had more of a film noir almost quality to them. A lot of dark, heavy lighting, and a lot of drama, especially when the raptors were attacking. And so,
You feel that?
yeah.
It's a T-Rex still over there.
Raptor.
But, again, it was just bouncing around. For me, it was just a lot of different things, designing cages, props, weapons. I even did some passes on costumes on the characters. A lot of different stuff. The Mr. DNA character, I started working on that. The gate, it was just everything I could think of that needed to be visualized at the time. I would just take a shot at it and let Rick and Steven decide whether it was good or not.
Yeah, and it was all good enough as far as I'm concerned. But it's a question of what ultimately it's a director's medium. So what does the director want? How does the director visualize it? And Steven's a very visual guy. I mean, this may sound funny, but a lot of directors are not very visual, and they really need a lot of help to kind of, and they really have a hard time making up their minds. Steven's not that guy. He's really he's visual, and he's you show him something he likes, and he likes it right away. He'll say, yeah, that's it, let's do that. And if not, he gives you pretty good direction, I think. Anyway, that's been my experience. But also one of the things that happens a lot with any of these kind of like fantasy, alternate world, alternate reality type movies is we create production illustrations. So they're not only storyboards and stuff, but they are high key illustrations, pretty well rendered. And as digital technology's gotten better and better, they just get better and better. The artists just get, it's just amazing. And so you're showing the director, here's what the lagoon looks like in Jurassic World, and here's what Main Street looks like with the visitor center at the end, and all that. And that's really important too. And I mean, I can actually say Colin Trevorrow, I get his name wrong all the time, who did Jurassic World. I actually made a mistake with him on one of the illustrations. It was the helicopter landing pad that was up on the side of the hill that, the guy takes off in, and they're going to go shoot the pteranodons. And I had in the illustration a yellow safety rail around the edge. And I guess he had told me in the meeting, change the yellow, and I didn't make a note of it. So everybody's looking at the illustration saying, okay, this is it. This is what it should look like in the end. And you get there on the day to shoot, and it was like yellow handrail. What the fuck, So, that is one thing that seems to happen more and more. Is there are these really really amazing kick-ass illustrations that get done, and now they can be built in 3D as well, and you can move through them, and directors see them and they really expect that's what I'm going to get exactly, and they really hold you to it. So you've really got to pay attention. You can get caught up. A
lot of the tools from gaming have moved into the movies now, and one of them is Unreal Engine, which is a place where it's almost like a Japanese sci-fi anime where people can meet in virtual reality and deposit assets like production design and everything else, and actually create the parameters of the world. And you can actually run through it, as a cinematographer can actually go through with a camera the same you would if it was in the real world.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we have time for one more. I'm going to go with you with the lovely shade of shirt.
I took a class in college, storyboarding, and it was kicking my ass as hard. But a lot of it was on paper. Is the industry standard digital now, or is it still on paper? And what do you prefer and why?
So the question is, after taking a class that kicked his ass, there was storyboarding still on paper, or are we going more digital now?
I was going to say, I still use paper and pen. I mean, I still go that way.
Me too. But it's just because I just prefer drawing on paper and pen and ink and all that stuff. But I don't know, Tim.
Actually,
you've been doing it a lot
I'm
more.
still an old fogey too, because I do that. But the fact is, though, there's nothing going between your thought process and the paper. When you're coming up with the ideas or how you're doing it, you're not getting a warning light that you've run out of memory or something on your computer or whatever. But you do have basically the pipeline to the production is digital. So whatever you produce, however you do it, basically it ends up digital in the end.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's our panel, it seems. Now that the T-Rex is making its presence known,